Are we on? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, and we're on. Hey everybody, this is Vincent Faney, aka Vinsanity and Unplugged. This is my YouTube channel. Right now I'm live streaming. I just started this today. You could click on my Facebook page. My Facebook page will actually show you. You can link on that on the YouTube. You can click on that and hopefully you'll get a live stream. If you don't, obviously be able to listen to the recording later. You could also do some comments on my YouTube. When you click on that now, you could click on it now and then you could do make comments to me. Like for instance, I'm going to make a comment to you guys. Hello world. Whoops, I got to misspell it. Okay, hello world. This is when I start traveling back around from from Canada to Mexico again. Hello world. So you're welcome to comment and so forth. Anyways, this whole thing is pretty much talking about why people, all the people that want to have affordable housing, why they're not doing anything about it. The fact of the matter is this is a crisis, and this has always been a situation. And I want to kind of talk to you about why I have always believed we need housing. First off, besides pointing out that I think most people are mentally ill, I mean myself as well, to a degree. It's not like I'm talking from the Sermon from the Mount, like I got all my stuff together and you guys all suck. It's nothing like that. The thing is, we're all half flipping nuts. We're born into this world. We got parents that are half flipping nuts. And I don't mean people who are suffering from, some of the disorders that many mental health specialists talk about, like bipolar or schizophrenic or psychotic or any of the other things, or clinical depression. Those are real illnesses. And quite frankly, people should not be embarrassed about having mental illnesses, that especially if they can't correct them, because it's just like having, needing a heart valve replaced. It's like having high cholesterol. We all have problems. We all have to find some way of dealing with it. So the issue is we start off half flipping nuts. Our parents are half flipping nuts. And very few people have parents that have all their stuff together, and so by the time you become adults or they become adults, they're only have a few minor flaws or neuroses. So again, I look forward to sharing with all of you my lifelong dream of seeing a world where we're all working together to help each other to own our properties outright. At the very least, for each of us to enjoy the benefits of affordable housing, even if we can't own a house outright. Now, I would like to share with you the origins of my vision quest, how it's been progressing along with many of the daunting obstacles I've encountered during my journey. And the most daunting obstacle I'm currently facing is the undeniable fact the majority of people all around each of us are suffering from mental illness, okay? Does such mental illnesses come from the constant exposure to society's toxic groupthink? Or does the fact that most people may start off with mental illnesses, and then because humans are social animals, each and every one of them is motivated to interact with other people also mentally ill, and thereby together create a toxic amplification of social insanity of the collective? So let's work together and see if we can figure this out. By and large, to start with my journey is I grew up basically, whoops, wrong way. When I was a kid, I grew up poor most of my life, and for a very short period of time, my parents were married and they were doing very well. My dad was just started making good money. Not a good guy, running around with my mom, neglectful, always away, and ignore that. This is not a perfect day. We will be looking towards a perfect day. So, anyways, the situation is that my parents got divorced. My dad was a deadbeat guy. My poor mother was a working mother, worked 2 full-time jobs to support us. And now we never went without food on the table, but I got to tell you, the quality and the quantity of the food that we had was not like prior. My brother and I all felt like we were always starving, and by and large, that's just, I never felt like I got enough to eat, okay? I was always hungry. And we moved around a lot. I didn't have any friends till I was eighth grade or ninth grade. And that was only because I became an athlete. That's only when I started to become popular. So the reason was is we moved around so much. I never had time to get to know any kids. Didn't time to have make any friends. And that's why I think compared to most people, I value friends. Most people, friends are like a change of socks. They've always had them. They always will have them. If they lose their friends, they can pick up some other Facebook friends and somebody just to keep them company and watch some segment of, I don't know, Walking Dead or something like that. But my parents, my mother was always, we were always looking to move, and I found out later part of it is, well, you got the landlords need to do work, they're kicking her out of the house. You got some pesky landlord who wants to, some sexual favors for my mother, and she doesn't want to do it, so he'd find an excuse to get rid of her. So we're always moving around. So I always felt this insecurity of not having a stable place. Okay? And so, especially after the military, I did not plan well. And I like working. I was working 2 full-time jobs. They were minimum wage jobs. I worked 80 hours a week. So here's why I didn't plan well. The one job paid all my bills. The second job I used for entertainment. I spent a lot of money on entertainment, going to nightclubs. I didn't save enough, didn't invest any, I didn't know anything about investing, so basically I didn't have a plan, didn't have the knowledge, just like most people don't, and I didn't get prepared for the situation that came my way. Ended up homeless. Ended up living in a little 6x10 camper, no heat, no water, no bathroom, and nearly frozen, starved to death that winter in Philadelphia. 5 below zero on average. I went from 175 pounds, muscular, not a scrap of fat on me, and I starved down to 130. Now, back then, we didn't have the support systems we have now for people who are homeless. Didn't have cell phones. Didn't have Occupy Medical or anything like that. Didn't have a lot of things, okay? So, and they didn't give welfare or food stamps to people in my situation. And, of course, if you don't have a home or a phone or anything like that, you know the process of not getting hired. So it doesn't take an Einstein to figure out. If you're wondering about a picture about why is Einstein up there, it doesn't take an Einstein to figure out we all need affordable housing. And so that's what I want to talk to you about. My vision all my life was to get some properties, just to have properties that we could own one day, not necessarily a commune, but a property that would have many houses, maybe one big house, maybe several large rooming houses with all my friends and family living in there, being totally secure. I figure we can live a little bit like the Amish. The Amish have a pretty good deal, and I don't care if they only wear black. I'm not a clothes horse anyways, right? So the fact of the matter is that those guys work together. They're frugal, they're hardworking, they're all out. They're self-reliant. They can do what they can fix anything. They can make anything. They make butter. They know how to kill and dress an animal. They know how to make canned food. There's nothing that these guys can't do, and they all have a great relationship. Now, I'm not a religious person, and I wouldn't be quite that. I don't know. I'm a little more liberal in what I want to do. Like, for instance, we're talking about liberal. A lot of things I just want to let you know, you guys, I'm socially liberal, fiscally conservative, and I don't think the one thing that the Amish would tolerate these days, I don't know if that's true or not, but I just don't see them tolerating transsexuals. Okay? Now me, believe it or not, I'm a heterosexual guy, and I think that I like the fact that this new generation doesn't have a problem with transsexuals and people who identify, people who are have orientations to the same sex or anything. I mean, to me, I don't understand it. I can't conceive of myself being that way. I'm not going to lie, but I don't think people who are hardworking, ethical, forthright people, if they feel they're transsexual, if they feel like they were meant to be a woman or a man or fluid or whatever, I really don't care. None of my business. And I think I don't think the Amish would put up with that, but if they were living on my property, commune, I'd be okay with it. It's none of my business. So I really like how the new generation, that such sexual identification is not a thing with them. I like the fact that a lot of the new generation are colorblind. That's kind of nice. You know, they look at everybody as being human beings, or they think that everybody should be treated as human beings. Pretty awesome. So, again, socially liberal, fiscally conservative. And what I mean by fiscally conservative, I believe in living frugally. That's conservative. I believe in making far more than what I spend on indulgences. That's conservative. I believe taking that money and investing it wisely in the properties and land and paying it off as quick as possible so that when pandemics come or economic downturns come, whatever happens, you and your family and friends will have a place you could reside, not worry about anything. Pretty darn cool, huh? Now, obviously, if one of those buildings you see had stores of pantries and year's supply of food, and you had tools, and each had skills, that would be pretty darn cool too. So all my life, I foresaw having my circle of family and friends having such properties and just being safe. And then, of course, turning all our creative energies and our intelligence to try to ensure that the rest of the world has something like this. That would be pretty darn cool. Now imagine, now this looks pretty bleak in a way to some people, but imagine if, we had property like this, just affordable housing. And imagine in between all these yards and so forth, you had gardens and so forth. Now, if it was me, I picked this up, I would actually have, what I had fantasized was taking a city block and taking out the houses in the alley and just having the houses in front, and then having the property in the back of both streets, and putting in gardens and chickens and goats and so forth, urban farming, that sort of thing. So that was what I was striving for. And all my life, all throughout high school, I would tell my friends this, and I would tell them when I got out of the Marines. And of course, when I became homeless, I really thought that this was a very important thing. And then I came out to Oregon. I realized the importance after being homeless. I realized I needed to plan better. Because, see, most people don't have goals. And if they have goals or ideas, they don't write them down. Because you got to write down what your goals are. And I don't mean like, I wish I want a better haircut so girls will like me. Or I want to lose this little bit of tum-tum so girls will like me. Those are nice too. Kind of superficial. I prefer to not worry as much about my hair, especially these days since I have less of it, and not worry so much about my expanding waistline because I'm having more of that. And I like to think about how we could provide and help with each other, right? Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, so I always thought it'd be nice to build houses, little houses. That's not a big mansion, but that's a house that's environmentally sustainable. Okay, that's what we want, sustainable houses. Now, I think myself, I'd be happy if I could have free time and be creative and be all the time to be a community builder. I could live in a Conestoga and live in a communal area where I had to go take a shower in a communal shower, just like I did when I lived in the barracks in the Marine Corps. I'd be fine with having just a chow hall. I'd be fine with the only privacy I would have is a little Conestoga hut where I can sleep and maybe a little desk that I could do some writing on my laptop, okay? That's fine. Community workout place, community shower, community chow hall. Now, I don't think everybody should be forced to live that way. I don't think we should become a hive of bees. I'm not a jealous kind of person. I don't worry about somebody having a nice house and a nice car or anything like that. I'm just not hung up on what other people have and what I don't. I believe that we should be working to that. Now, you see these Conestogas? That'd be fine for me. I've lived in a lot more primitive. But a lot of people who want free housing and don't want to work with it, they're really not even defined. They don't define what would be the minimal that they would want. They don't define what's the maximum that they're going to go for or they would like to have. There's no plan. There's no actually they just say I want affordable housing. I want free housing. It's our human right to have free housing. And I don't want to get into the politics or the ideology. Is it our right? Is it not? I just know the fact of the matter is it has never been, it will never be, and it may never be. And in the meantime, my 60-some years on the planet, we could have worked together. And if I was talking to a friend yesterday, I said, if all you guys were to jump in back then, by myself, I could have owned knowing what I know, I could have owned by now, if I started when I was 18, 100 and some houses paid off. I could have 100 and some properties paid off. Think about that, 100 and some 4 to 5 bedroom properties paid off. Okay, and that's just me, if I did it by myself, and without even being super creative. And that's only renting each of those places at half of what the market value would be. I took houses at $200,000 a house, 4 or 5 bedrooms, charged half the rent of what is currently being charged, and did the amortizations, and really figured easily. I've done this all the time. You could just do it if you're willing to do the certain tricks of paying down and so forth and so on. They're not really hard. In fact, the first house I bought, I actually paid off in 7 years without making a special effort to pay it off in 7 years, because I was splitting, like in blackjack, you say split the cards. I was getting more. I wasn't buying a property and putting all my attention at one property. I was splitting and getting other investments because, again, I was, planning for the best way to help care for my entire circle of friends and family. Doing my best to get a lot of them moved out here because many of them were poor, living at home in mom's basement, no prospects. So I was really fearful of them. So there's a van that I used to own before I got rear-ended. Okay, this is a van that. As you can see, I've been interested in charities. That was 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Those are firemen who bought shirts off me, and I gave the money to Alzheimer's, and I gave it to Women's Space, and I gave it to Food for Lane County. Made a lot of money, all of which went to Alzheimer's, Food for Lane County, and Women's Space. So, and that's on record. So it's not like, any of these things I'm doing. So the fact of the matter is, I just assume that once everybody learned the trick of getting real estate and getting it paid off for each other, that they would just do it. I know that people didn't know, and if you don't know, you can't blame anybody. But even people who are working, $15, $12, $10 out, there's all sorts of methods for people to get their property. And I got to tell you, I tend to judge people initially through my own lenses, and I just assume, well, of course they're going to do it. But then I would show people, and I've been telling a lot of the people who are my Facebook friends over the years, this is what we can do together. And I had a house in Eugene, and I told some people, it needs got to repair the roof, needs some lipstick, only owe $100,000 on there, want to get a whole bunch of years to get involved, and I will live in a van and put this house up, we'll all pay it off, and you'll get 5 people, 6 people living in that house, and we'll all work towards helping the community to also, so more people could get a house. And unfortunately, nobody wanted to do that. The only people who came through were people who wanted to kind of live there for nothing, and maybe, they pay 1 or 2 months worth of rent, promising that they would do all the things to help me. And here's the thing. The fact of the matter is that even though I was charging half of what I could have in rents, nobody, even the people who didn't work, even a guy I let live there for 9 months, he was not even putting in a percent. He wasn't doing anything to help. No trading hours like, oh, Vince, thanks for letting me live here and feed me and pay my share of the utilities. And by the way, let me help you with your project so other people could have a free place to live. No, that didn't happen. That has never actually happened. And I could recount many, many stories. That has never actually happened. People complaining, you help them out, give them a free place to live, or you give them like very reduced rents. They don't want to help. They're not interested. They're interested in exploiting. So my union and other people, that's the plan, pushing the rock up the hill. That's basically how effective they take the hard road. They take the hard road. My union took the hard road. And so where I used to work, there was some racism, there was sexism, there were sexual harassments, there were all sorts of things going on. Now, a lot of people talk about the post office. They don't want to see the post office disbanded. Just basically, I was forced out of work, and despite being forced out of work, so obviously I don't have all the properties that I was getting to turn over, okay? I didn't have any of that. So, the fact of the matter is, that's what I'm hoping we could all do. So I got some noise going on here. Okay, so So let me go. This is the thing that we fought over. You'll see that the whole situation. This is why I don't trust government. We're all, we got our governor saying, or the government saying we don't need masks, and we need masks. We don't need masks. Situation was that at the Postal Service, who not only has wasted money, continues to waste money, has not changed their habits, and I gotta say for the record that even after my lawsuit against them, I actually basically really I never tore them down. I basically defended the Postal Service, even though they did me wrong as far as being a good service. But then they continued to waste money. They continue to, like with the respirator issue, they said, no, you can't wear the respirator, at least at our plant. And then basically they allowed at other plants, people were not, because the law allows it. So the thing about government, and you got to fear, is you got people who, as government agents are not held accountable. A lot of people want to see the police be held more accountable, not to have the protection, the immunity. And I understand that. I'm not against that. But you got to apply that to legislators and other agents within the government as well. Otherwise, you'll never get rid of the corruption and the waste of our tax dollars and so forth. Got to do it. So that's a good respirator, by the way, and that's better than a lot of the masks I see people wearing. Of course, that doesn't keep all the viruses out because the pores are so many times larger than the virus, but there's such thing as viral load, and it's certainly better than nothing. And it's a lot more comfortable. You don't get breathing fatigue and so forth. Anyways, this slideshow is going kind of slow. This is where I actually had to end up going to the United States Supreme Court myself, filing. And the fact of the matter is that there are so many things we could do. People say you can't do this, you can't do that, it's impossible, and so forth and so on. Not to brag, but to show you the power of what planning does and believing in yourself. I basically reached a level of strength with I never beat any of the world record holders in my weight class, but I reached a level of strength that only happens 1 in a billion. 1 in a billion people have got the level of strength that I got and this was when I was 40, and I've never used steroids, and I got less than average genetics. But I planned well, and I learned how to apply that type of planning and pattern recognition of what can be done and what can't to real estate and everything else. And I got to just say, if we want to stop racism, I mean, you're never going to get rid of it 100%, but if you want things to change, if you want to have this affordable housing for all, actually paid housing, everybody owning housing outright, and us doing it on our own without incurring more tax debt, it's a lot easier, it's a lot more doable than reaching the level of strength that I got. Now, I can show people how to reach a world-class level of strength, okay? Most people could certainly do a lot better than what they're doing, but to reach the level of strength I got was, it's a lot harder for all of us, for me, for you, for anybody to get that level of strength. Getting real estate and paying it off with you and your friends is a lot easier. Now, as you can see, I'm very much against racism. I wrote this book because I'm multiracial. I'm actually a human being, but for the sake of making a point, most people look at me and they just say, you're a privileged, hateful, white male with toxic masculinity, and I resent hearing that because that's a very racist statement. And being multiracial, it makes me a little uneasy because I never know what race is going to be discriminated against me, especially when they find out my background. So very much against racism, and that's why I wrote this little booklet. And basically, this booklet was written to raise money for organizations that fight racism. That's just the way it is. And this slideshow is going slow. I don't know why. I'm afraid of doing it quicker. I think it's because of the streaming. Anyways, just to let you guys know, it's another story of when I was poverty, where I had blood money. It's where I used to sell my plasma. They call it, what do they call it? They call it donating. I didn't donate it. I sold it. And way back when I first moved to Oregon, I used to go to a couple different places and actually give plasma more often than I was supposed to. That's just the way it is. I needed the money. I needed to eat. So anyways, also at work, when I worked at the post office, you had a nice person, single parent, who contracted HIV, and there's no telling where the person got it. Uh, Blood products used to come in through the mail stream. We were handling boxes from labs and so forth and so on. And I know what it's like to feel despair. As you can see, I was on some heavy duty medications one time, and I knew it was the medications driving me half flipping nuts. But you know, people are shocked. I'm not the suicidal type, but let me tell you, that's kind of like what happened. So again, the one thing that really bothered me is I couldn't get most of my friends. I couldn't get hardly any of my friends to get on with the game plan. There's one or two friends that actually invested in real estate on their own, and they actually, because they had the same thing to provide for their families and their circle of family and so forth. And except for getting two business partners, I couldn't get anybody else to do it. And here's the thing: some people, they just, I don't know. I just don't understand it. You show them the plan. You show them how it could be paid off in 5 years. You show where they won't have to work day and night to do it. They just want to basically piss fart around and watch TV and read things that, you know, they'll never pick up a book on investing. They'll read stuff that won't have any value, won't do anything to improve their lot in life or to help their friends or their relatives or anything else. So I got, you know, and here's the thing about, I actually saw a congressperson to help me raise money for the veterans who needed body armor and for some other things. Let me tell you, that was an interesting story. That's a true story. So you could read that some other time. But even despite all the odds, I had my own union blacklist me. And when I was going through all this, here's another story, is that my lawyer, my union, my business partners, my friends, my families, the national union, everybody said, you will never be able to force the post office to let you wear a respirator and work. That's the thing, I want it to work. And so they blackballed me. My whole union tried to torpedo my efforts. Even though I could show, because this is back before the internet, or when the internet was just getting started, and they blocked, through my phone company, they blocked me from speaking to, because I was speaking to a whole bunch of union offices and so forth, different locals, and I made the mistake of alerting the national, and then right after, they put the kibosh on me. I wasn't able to call them. I got a block on their phone numbers and also on their email addresses. And the phone company told me about that, so I was pretty ticked. But despite being torpedoed, despite being an army of one, nobody helped me. Not my friends, not my family. They were terrified. You know, there is government. You know, and so they just basically, all these people who just like people who say, I want to see housing for everybody, and I want to see equality, and I want to see this, and I want to see that. A lot of people just weren't into it, right? Okay, now I really like this guy. So despite all these unfair things that happened to me, I had to learn how to be accountable for my everything. And this is what this guy says is true. Hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You can't control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before blaming other people, go to the nearest mirror and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? Now, this guy suffered during the worst times of the Jim Crow era. And yet, he's horrified at how people who are trying to stop racism, he and many other people from the black community are horrified on how things are being handled. What was wrong with the way Martin Luther King did it? Okay, and yes, you know, people just think, okay, we got this done once. It should have changed forever. Well, the thing about freedom and so forth, you got to keep going at it, keep going at it, keep going at it. And the fact of the matter is that I would say we got to figure out what to do with housing. Housing is the biggest issue. Housing is the biggest issue to face. So we need to work together. Need to work together as a team. And in the next picture, you will see that. You will see Navy SEALs working together with carrying logs, right? Only that way can you work as a team. Will things work? For whatever reason, people won't do it. Now, I told you all that if I was working by myself, I could have had a house. I could have 120 some houses paid off from by the time at the end of my life, right? That's a lot of, even charging half the rents of what other renters or landlords are charging. Basically, that's only half. That's still a heck of an income and security for you and for the people that you want to give the charge less rent. When people are paying less rent or less mortgage, that's more income to schooling. All of a sudden, they are a person who's not working a living wage has a living wage. Now, why would we deny that for each other? So you got all these people who don't realize that we need to take care of Maslow Abrams pyramid of needs. Okay, on the bottom, food, water, shelter, warmth. Well, we can help each other get the shelter. That's the point. We can help each other get that shelter, and so that will bring the security and the stability and the freedom from fear. That one thing, we got to pay attention to the bottom, and we can help each other do it. We can't get it from our legislators. Our legislators are basically keeping things quiet until they can switch their stocks around. Our legislators are voting themselves in raises while things are going. All these things that I'm telling you about, all these problems, quite frankly, could have been taken care of 20 years ago. The fact of the matter is, unions and legislators do not want to cure the problem because that means they would lose power and influence. They cure it, why would we need them, okay? So we also need belonging and love and friends and family, spouse and, love, right? But it's pretty stressful when you don't have a house. And here's the thing, on the other side of the equation, if you have true friends and family and love, they're all going to help each other get these properties. And of course, that's where self-esteem and achievement, mastery, and recognition, respect comes, right? But those are things you've got to work for. None of us are born with self-esteem. But it takes achievement. I mean, imagine coming into a world and you're the smartest person, you're the strongest person, you're the most beautiful person. Nothing you do, nobody could beat you, you're peerless. It'd be kind of boring. We're wired to need to work against to overcome obstacles. We need to work to have goals. We need to plan. Every person I've ever met who has not planned, who doesn't have goals, are always, and they'll say it, I'm depressed. Well, that's good. You should be depressed. That's your body, that's your brain saying, get off your ass and do something. Okay, now there's some people with biochemical situation and they're depressed. And guess what though? Even though they have a biochemical situation, a lot of these people can do without the medications eventually through some cognitive behavioral therapy. And that means planning and getting a congruence between your thoughts and your emotions. Now, I'm big on feely stuff and emotions and all this stuff, but there's a lot of people who believe that we shouldn't, that emotions are superior to logic and science, right? That it's enough that I wish for this to happen. Well, if wishes were worth a damn thing in themselves, you wouldn't have to listen to me, would you? Wouldn't have to listen. Now, this MTF, a lot of people find this very offensive. Very offensive. Why? Oh, you're trying to shame me. You're trying to you're trying to tell us to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. Not necessarily. It's just basically just taking into account what the reality is. Because despite what you feel, despite what you want, despite your dreams, despite your wishes and your fantasies, reality is a mofo, okay? Reality can kick your ass. So you got to deal with the reality, and you got to take into account the situation, what the most likelihood. This pandemic is not a surprise. This pandemic, and you look through history, that's one of the reasons why I've been harping on this, affordable housing, owning our houses outright, is in every life, there are three things that on average happen 3 times each. And regardless of which one of these things happen, the other 2 are shortly behind, are on the way. That is pandemics, economic downturns, and wars. And nowadays with the global market, when there's wars around the world, it affects our economy here. And obviously when things aren't going right and when there's, like China, because of their weird government, we got a pandemic. And it's not just Pelosi's fault or Trump's fault. It just is what it is. And here's the thing. As bad as people think it is, this is nothing than compared to what could have happened. But again, if harping on this, now more than ever, because of the unemployment and so forth, there's going to be more homeless people. And this is the reason why we have to sit together and plan and not just like wish and not just get into this thing. We start focusing on what everybody else is doing. Because here's the thing. No, I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. This was the situation at work. The reason why I was forced out of work, the reason why a couple of my coworkers died from lung infections and so forth, wasn't because we didn't have a union, wasn't because we didn't have plans. They didn't plan well enough. They basically paid lip service. They didn't sit down. They were just basically, every one of them would focus on, the Democrats are in power. That's why they want to focus on problems that had, instead of the immediate situation. They wanted to focus on things they had no control over. And people are still doing that. I get that all the time. I get friends who are, they got postal pensions and they're going to be homeless in a couple of years unless something happens. And you're like, how come you haven't planned? And the thing is, they just don't plan. And you're like, dude, all you do is you come and you complain and you still won't plan. And you got people to worry about. Now, I'm interested in talking to this guy. You show me a highly unequal society, and I'll show you a police state or the uprising of pitchforks will come for us if we do not address this. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. Now, that's true. And when we say we must address this, who has more self-interest to address this than actually basically us? And there's the rock. Instead, for whatever reason, we want to push the rock upwards. There's this myth too. A lot of people who have shitty jobs, a lot of people who aren't making that much money will say, and I believe this forever, because I knew if I made more money, I knew if I knew about things, I would get things done. But the majority of people that I worked with back in the early years, 1980s, you could buy a duplex for $32,000, $35,000. Most of the people I worked with lived like emperors, and they could have invested easily, right? In this area, right? And so, did they? No. A good percentage of the people I worked with, they got paid $20 an hour at least, right? 4 to 5 paid weeks vacation a year. 4 weeks of sick leave paid. 13 federal and state, 13 state holidays, right? Okay. After 10 hours, you got time and a half. After the 10th hour, going into 11th to 12th, you got double time. Christmas was double time. We worked 60 hours a week, sucking down the overtime, and oftentimes management kept us on overtime to purposely take the mail off the trucks that we had just put on just so they could get the numbers up. That's government for you. None of these people were being arrested for these felonious acts. They made money. The right parties were told. Nothing was done. Nothing was done. That's our government. That's the post office. Believe me, if the post office was to go out of business, there are private mail facilities that would be more than happy to deliver the mail by the mail-in votes. It's not like we wouldn't have the ability to do a mail-in vote. But all these people at the post office who are now sucking hind tit, as we would say on the farm, why? After all that money you made. Because they didn't plan. They did not plan. And it's horrific. It's horrific that they did not plan. That's what we should be doing. See these nice people? They're raising a barn. They're raising houses. They're working together. These are things we could do. We could be giving a division of labor. We could get together with finances and everything else. So, again, to state that if I had other people jump on board with me, the first house, the 5 of us in the first house, we would have had that house paid off in a year. And within another year, we'd own another house. So within 5 to 6 years, all 5 of us would have our own house paid off. And then we'd have one rental. Or we could give that to friends and relatives who needed a place to stay. And within a short amount of time, by some frugal, some cautious investing and hard work, not working like slaves all day long, my friends, every one of them, would have a house paid off. We would have land. We'd be growing crops. We'd be raising our own food. We would have income, different investments. We would have college. We would have all the time to help the community. This is things that they said they wanted to do, but they never actually made a plan. And that was the thing that bugged me, is they would never make a plan. Their big plan is, how can I get laid? Where am I going to go party tonight? What can I do? What kind of furniture will look good here so I could impress some girls or whatever? It's pretty shallow. Most people, like during this pandemic, here's the thing. This is what's nuts. I hear people come over. I used to have this one guy come over and work out, and I train him for free. For free. And I was hoping that he would help me do some computer tech stuff. I was hoping that we'd help with the my passion for getting housing for people. Did he do it? No. He just wanted to talk about Trump. He just wanted to talk about these other people all the time, talk about problems, things that and it wasn't like he told me once. I mean, it wasn't like I disbelieved him. He told me once. I knew what he was saying was many of the things are true. You only have to tell me once or twice. You don't have to say it every second. And I go, dude, you're spending every second talking about Trump, and you need to be doing this. And here's the thing. He was out of work. He didn't have to work. He had free time. He was getting unemployment. I go, dude, you could help me out. I don't know. During a pandemic. Everybody's afraid. I go, well, this is now the time to work together. Well, I want to talk about Trump, or I want to talk about Pelosi, or I want to put down this person, that person. Then they get entitlement checks. So I don't really need to do this. We got to keep our distancing. You could help me, and we could keep distance. People just, the thing is ask yourself, when you have a plan and you say, dude, here's how we could easily have this place paid off in 5 years. You would have a free place to live. Your 4 of your best friends or family would have a free place to live. You could be working with other people in the community. I mean, the house I had that really $100,000 was owed on, less than $90,000 really, okay? And 9 people with $10,000, okay? 18 people with $5,000 each, okay? They could have bought the house. They could have lived in it. Easily gone for another house, right? And when you have a house that's paid off, banks really want to work with you. This is what we got to do. We got to work together. It's not that hard. So my whole thing is, it's good to virtue signal. A lot of people say, oh, you're just virtue signaling. Well, you got to virtue signal. A lot of people think we should help each other and not say anything. That's good too. That has its place. But when you have a mission, sometimes it's good to virtue signal. It's good. We must stop racism. We must stop unnecessary police violence. We must stop government corruption. But the biggest thing we need to do is we need to work together and help each other to have the housing. So here's the thing. 20 years ago, when I've been harping to a lot of the people who are still complaining on Facebook, they would today have houses. Okay, in 20 years, I would have had several houses paid off. Not an entire lifetime, several paid off, right? That was just me. Every person that complained, and we worked together, we would all, because of working together, instead of just having 20 houses apiece, we would have double that. Each of us would have double or triple that many houses. And guess who could benefit? People, once you have houses paid off, you don't have to charge what you originally were forced to buy them for. You could charge whatever. You could work out deals and give people affordable housing if they want to buy it and have a mortgage. You're the bank. You could do whatever you want. You could give it away. You could charge $1. You could charge whatever rent you want or no rent. All you got to worry about is property taxes and utilities. And this is something that's just like, it's not rocket science. I'm not trying to talk down to you guys. I'm not trying to shame you. But here's the thing, quite frankly. I think sometimes people should be ashamed. I think when people have a game plan in front of them that could free them up and give their family security, should they feel good about that? Should I go, dude, don't feel ashamed. Just keep doing what you're doing or keep doing what you're not doing. And really? I think that's the worst thing. And now, here's the thing. I tried to help quite a few people. And quite a few people, every one of these people, almost everyone, not everyone, exploited me. And I did what I could so they wouldn't feel ashamed. Oh, that's okay. You're not feeling, you're this, you're that. And none of these people would go with me to help at charity events. They wouldn't go to a soup kitchen. They wouldn't help me hand out flyers. They wouldn't do any of this. They kept on talking about shock doctrine and Naomi Campbell or all sorts of things, and how that evil Oprah, she's a billionaire. God knows she's evil. Oprah's a sociopath, and I couldn't get them to do anything. And it's just unbelievable. And so here's the thing, because I didn't want to take them to task in a loving way, at the end, I finally had to confront them in every way and say, look, here's the thing about friends. We are very careful to screen people if we're going to hire them. When we go to become employed, they screen us. When you go in and you want to check on a CPA or a lawyer, you get their creds, you screen them. We don't do that with our friends. They should be screened and interviewed the most. You should say, well, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I've worked and planned my whole life to basically offer all these perks, and I'll work 24/7 to make it happen. And I know that I won't have to work 24/7. I can basically work 16 hours a day or 8 hours a day, and you only have to work 4 or 5 hours a day to help me make this happen. And we can help each other and free each other up, and that way we can protect each other. So what do you offer me? Because that's a fair question. If I'm willing to do all this, I gotta make sure the people that I want to help are not going to, basically not going to get in my way. Now, some of these people, like this house here, I had a guy live here. Basically, he stole from me. He stole from the borders. He lived there for free because the way things worked. And at the end of 13 years, here's the thing. I had to say this one thing, me trying to be kind to him, me trying to save him against himself. I did him no favors. I did him no favors by trying to spare his feelings. Anybody's feelings that I tried to spare over years, it's not doing them a favor. So while I'm not a person who's big on just going out of my way to shame people, I think people need to be confronted in an honest way, and you got to say, okay, what kind of friend, what kind of friendship can you offer me? Or, will you take me to the doctor when I need to go to the doctor, and I can take you to the doctor and that's it? We can just chit chat? That's fine. If I have time for that. But I got to maximize my time. I got to figure out who are the people that need help. So that's the house that I have. And that's a house I don't owe very much money on. And it's a nice house, and I like living there. Big, 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 giant bedrooms with high ceilings, right? Big backyard, fenced in, giant shop lawn. It needs a little lipstick. Has a new roof. That's the old roof. And the fact of the matter is that I'm down for it. But you got a lot of people. I can't tell how many people I say, how would you like to make this happen? Here's the plan. Are you interested in doing a seminar and having the plan? Crickets. You know what I get on Facebook? Thumbs up and hearts. Oh, nice. I get a lot of people who watch. Nobody says, but I get people saying, oh, the system's against us. I'm out of work and I can't do anything. And I'm like, but you have kids and you have people you're worried about and you got your own self. You should be worried about you should be looking out for your own self-interest. That's the whole point. I want to help you to look out for your self-interest. But I wasn't put on this planet to work day and night and turn everything over to people who don't give a rat's ass about other people, really. I mean, when you value people, you're compelled. Your first instinct is to do something. Like when I was at work and I was coughing up blood and green crap, I was, when my friend with cancer, my first instinct was to speak up for him. First instinct. But a lot of people, that's not their first or even last instinct. And here's the thing. We got to be forgiving. Okay? Not all people, they just don't understand. And so when everything was said and done, I forgave everybody. All right? And here's the thing. After forgiving everybody, I said, yeah, if things went down like this, but here's the terrible thing. Only 90% of the people, if given the chance again, and I needed them to do specific things, which would end up really being in their best interest too, will not do it. Now, what's up with that? That's a kind of insanity, wouldn't you say? So, I'd like to get some feedback on that. Again, if any of you were interested, you could help me to facilitate that property. I would live in my van, even though I never had a real home growing up ever, really. And I've always wanted to have a nice home with friends and people I cared about and the farm and so forth. I would live in my van for the rest of my days and die in my van if I knew that I could leave a legacy that people would start getting on the wagon and start helping each other to be free of the tyranny of, will the government give me an entitlement check? Will the government do this? I mean, half the people haven't even gotten their stimulus checks. Half the people they haven't even got a return call for unemployment. And that's just historically how it's always been. It's how it's always will be, even with the internet and high technology and conference calls. Even with the even though the government uses the taxpayers as an ATM. It's just how it's always been. Always been. It'll always be. Now, if you have family or anybody you care about and yourself, because bad times always come and they'll come again, why would you not want to get on board with something like this? And here's the thing. Some people are skeptical. You're selling something. You want something for yourself. Well, yeah, okay, admittedly, I'd like to pay off that house and turn it over. But here's the thing. What I'm expressing, the plans I'm talking about, not only is it not rocket science, you don't need me to be involved. You could be circled around with your own friends and family. And here's the problem, really. When you really look at it, and this is why I talk about extreme friendship, the biggest problem why most people can't make this happen is because they don't have the kind of friends they could count on. And I feel your pain. I feel your pain. You don't have the friend. It does take a rocket science or Einstein to figure out that if you don't have the friends that you could count on, then you got to ask yourself, why are you investing your time in your friends, and ask them why they invest in their time in you? Is it for shits and giggles? Is it because they're lonely and they would need distraction? That's what dogs are for. Get a puppy. They want distractions and laughs? Get a couple of Eddie Murphy tapes. I love people, but I've never been bored, and I've never been lonely. I've been bored when I've been forced in the company of boring, superficial people. Even in DMV, I bring a book. So we gotta work together. That's all I'm saying. Not trying to beat you guys up. Not trying to shame you, but I gotta say, for instance, if you're not doing what you need to do to help your friends when there's easily a plan, and maybe shame is strong. Maybe you shouldn't feel ashamed, but you shouldn't feel good about that. And when people are pointing at other people and say they should be ashamed, like Trump and so forth and so on, you got to say, hey, he's a broken person too. And then I hear, well, that's because he deserves to be demonized. He has power over us. We don't have any real power. Well, my whole point is I want you all to be empowered. I want you all to be there for each other. Again, if you have 5 friends you could count on, 5 friends, then you can make this happen easily. But the fact is, I feel your pain. Most of you can't. Just can't. I know you can't. So anyways, guys, it's been great talking to you. I'm going to be cutting out right now. And again, I'll talk later more about this. So leave your comments. And, if any of you want to publicly debate this, if you think I'm being too harsh, if you think I'm being shameful or whatever, that's fine. That's fine. You could have differences of opinions. I just want the people to have the intellectual and emotional courage to confront me because, maybe I'm saying something wrong. Maybe it's getting across. One time I did a talk and I offended somebody because basically, and I understand, I got real preachy. I'm not trying to preach now. I'm just trying to give information. But that one time I saw the video, I could tell I was angry. And what I was doing, I wasn't speaking to the people who are in the audience. I was speaking in my mind's eye that passed to my union officers and some other people. So I was angry. I was like, rah, 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 righteous anger. That wasn't meant to be aimed at people in the community that I want to see happen. I just don't want you guys actually to be facing the same type of people who deserve that righteous anger. I don't want you guys to be put in their power. And quite frankly, I think a lot of legislators are really not doing what they need to do. They are not following through with their oath of office in the way that they should. I think we may see an uprise in the pandemic. Some people say that, but are these riots? And there's inconsistency. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. So there's Republican leaders I liked, and there's Democratic leaders I liked. I don't like inconsistent, hypocritical leaders. So when you say you can't go to church and you say you can't go to a gym and you say you can't go to graduation, but it's okay to go out and riot and protest without masks and so forth and so on, I get a little edgy. I don't like it. And here's the thing. Part of the reason why people don't like me is I don't like pandering. I will not pander any of you. Pandering is a skill set and tool of weak, willfully impotent, and disingenuous politicians, period. All right, guys. Believe it or not, love yous. Especially some more than others, some less than others. But I just hope that we can make this work. So I'm ready to shut off. I'm learning all this. Like